two of our co-founders, they met at a book club. They were living in Philly. One is a like developer, and they met at this book club, and he really liked her, and she was leading the book club, and she's like, oh man, it's just like a lot of work. There's a lot of emails here, like a lot of email threads, like texting people, are you going to come, this, that, whatever, what do you want to read? And so to woo her, he created this app just for her book club, and then presented it to her as like, here, I made you an app for this book club.
Hello and welcome to That Nerd Thing, where we uncover the magical impact that fandoms have on our lives. I'm Morgan, and today is an extra fun special episode all about the magic of book clubs. And I have two people here with me today, very, very excited. So you might remember Illy from a few episodes ago. She is the founder of the Spine Benders Society, and there is a chapter in South Florida and Orlando. And then she introduced me to a lovely, what is your role at book clubs? But somebody from BookClubs.com, the app that we use for our book clubs, Carrie. So hi, Carrie. What do you do at book clubs?
Hi. Oh, what don't I do? So I'm the community and partnerships director for Book Clubs, which is a free web and mobile app. And you can find us at BookClubs.com. And yeah, so we're a small, lean team, a women-founded company and run company, just doing the Lord's work, trying to get people to join book clubs, start book clubs, read books, discuss books, and, everything in between.
And answer all my messages in between.
Yeah, so I'm also, because it is a small team, I am very heavily involved in like the product development as well, because I have such close communication with book clubs users and club leaders. So I learned so much, like to be able to like feed to our tech team to like make improvements or find bugs and things like that. So yeah, Illy's been a huge help, a huge resource in that area.
I'm not surprised at all. I think book clubs in general are amazing. And I remember, I was going through a difficult time in my life, and I was like, I need to join a book club. I needed to find some things to do. And I think I just Googled book clubs near me, and the website, bookclubs.com, popped up, and I found this amazing book club. And then from there, it just sort of grew, and it's just been amazing. So I think book clubs are just life-changing in general. And I think the website, the app, it's been wonderful. So I don't know if either of you want to speak to, Illy, what it's like for you to host a book club, and then Carrie, what it's like on the back end seeing the success of all these book clubs.
Well, I found bookclubs.com the same way. I Googled book clubs near me and found it. And for me, from an admin lead perspective, I could not lead my book club without it. It's just a one-stop shop for me. So it's like I can easily do RSVPs. I can easily do polls for books. I can manage my members. It's definitely a one-stop shop that it started off as I just want to find a book club. And then having the app be so easy made me feel empowered to start my own book club. So that's my perspective of it. Carrie, I know, has very different perspective.
First of all, I love to hear that, all of that. Like, that's exactly what we want. But here's what's interesting is I have a different perspective because I work here now, but I actually found book clubs in a similar way to both of you. I had moved to a new city, and that's hard. You're trying to make friends, you're trying to build a community, and it can be slow going. And I actually read an article in our local newspaper. One of the co-founders lives in the city that I'm in, which is Richmond, Virginia. So I saw an article about it. I'm like, oh, this is great. I've always wanted to start a book club. So I did it. I started a book club. I got us on the app, and then I just started sending in unsolicited advice or like suggestions or like questions. Yes, about the product for sure. Like, like dream requests, like what I would love to see, but also just kind of like some marketing ideas and things like that. And an actual person responded to me and was really nice and like, wasn't like, please stop emailing. So I just kept doing it. Not all the time, but every once in a while. And anyway, long story short, they were like, hey, maybe we should have a meeting, and it led to working at book clubs. So yeah, I think that's a great romance story.
Wow.
So my first, like for almost a year, I think, history with book clubs was as a user and a club leader of a private club, just like with, people that I had met as I was starting my new life in Richmond. So yeah, so I do have that perspective, but also now working here, I just get to see, I think probably one of the greatest parts of my job is seeing all the different ways that people can lead and conduct a book club. It never ceases to be fascinating to me. And I think that's one of the biggest things I've learned is a lot of people have a kind of narrow idea of what a book club is. Let's talk about that later. But I have seen the millions of different ways that a book club can manifest in people's lives. So it's really, really cool.
That's amazing. That is really neat. I didn't realize that. So you had your own book club and loved the platform so much, and now you're working for them, and now you're on my podcast.
I know, right? What a success story. Yeah, I was just a super fan number one.
Cool. Okay, so let's talk about it. Like, what are book clubs?
Community. I mean, the word community, I know on a previous podcast, we talked a lot about that, but I think the community aspect of it is what I love. I'm in the same situation where I just moved and I'm trying to meet people. And the first thing that I thought was like, I have to start the book club again, to like meet people. And it really has been a great way to like meet people. Like I had like a, coffee chat with one of the girls this week, and like we talked about the next meeting and she wanted to plan it, and we got to get nerdy on a theme for the meetup and stuff. So it has really helped to meet people. And for being in a brand new city where I don't know anybody, and be able to say, yeah, I, went to the movies with a few people, and I went and met somebody for coffee after 4 months of being up here. To me, I think that's great, because it's really hard to make friends, as an adult.
Yeah.
And book clubs are so great because you already have something to talk about.
It's so funny. I feel like whenever I'm talking about book clubs in general, we're never really talking about the fact that you get to read a book and then talk about it with people. It seems like the real joy from book clubs is that community and meeting other people who maybe even if you're not talking about the book, you have those similar interests. So
I would say that's the same for me, was the sense of community. And my book club is one of the major factors that led me to feel like my new city was my home. Right? Rather than just a place that I had moved. And so I started my own club, like I said, just with like various people from separate like parts of my life, right? Like a job here, somebody in my neighborhood, like a friend of a friend kind of thing, and brought all these strangers together. And now we're an actual group of friends, like just like Illy was saying, and we like will go to dinner, get drinks, like go to the park and just hang out when it's not an actual book club meeting, right? And I love that. And one thing that I really love about book clubs, like working with book clubs, is that you don't have to be a club leader, right? Like I am. So actually, my book club is still in action.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We're still meeting. I know. And so, yeah, you don't have to be the person that does the organizing, the leading, because that's daunting for a lot of people. So we do kind of like matchmaking, right, on our website, where you can look for a public club and join an existing club, whether it's a new city or even if it's your old city and you're just trying to find new people to hang out with. Or maybe some people really do join a book club just because they're like, I have a personal goal of reading more or reading different books. And so that's maybe why they join. But then that community aspect is the real magic, I think, that like people experience that keeps them maybe going back.
I think it's great to talk about that too, because on this app, on bookclubs.com or BookClubs app, you can go and just search for book clubs near you. Like, it doesn't have to be that you want to have your own book club. Like maybe you just want to do something, this month or do something this weekend. And there's plenty of book clubs on there that are virtual too. So that's kind of how I started and how Morgan started too. We joined somebody else's book club and then said, you know what, let's start something.
Oh yeah. People, I mean, they can search clubs to join based on a specific book, right? Like maybe you just read a book that really just excited you, changed your life, and you're like dying to talk about it with somebody. So you can find a group group to join based on what book they're reading or discussing. You can do it based on location, like we chatted about, or just like lifestyle or themes. Like, so a lot of parent clubs, like motherhood clubs, or other types of support, which is also really beautiful. You see on there, like people in recovery, like sober groups, or there's domestic abuse survivor clubs that are really seeking solace in each other and reading about the huge thing in their life that they're all kind of linked together by. So there's just never ending like possibilities for people to find each other. It's really interesting, especially to see it on the back end, right? Because I get to see so much of what's happening amongst users.
Yeah. So, outside of this, I'm a psychologist. And one of the things that I tend to recommend, especially to a lot of introverts who maybe want to make friends and are having a hard time doing it, is I'm always like, you should check out like joining a book club, because there's in-person options, there's virtual options, and you already go in having something to talk about. You can always fall back on talking about the book. So have you both noticed that the book club makes it easier for maybe shyer people or introverts to open up?
Yeah, I think it's also just readers in general. Like, even if you are introverted, you obviously showed up because you want to talk about the book, right? So like, even if you are shy, I have found that the book community is really just so welcoming and so warm and friendly. I wanted to step away from like leading a book club and join another book club that I didn't have to host or lead discussion or anything like that. And I went to it this past week. And again, like I'm not super, in your face to try to figure out how to make small talk, but I was welcomed in and different people came up to talk to me and it was great. I'll definitely go back. So I think that's a great thing about the community, is even if you're introverted, you'll still find a way to talk to somebody.
Yeah, I agree, because like a successful book club, it's a group discussion, right? Not like an interview. And so I think if somebody is more introverted or shy, it can feel more comfortable, because this is like everybody has the same amount of ownership in the conversation, right? It's not lying on one person's shoulders. I mean, maybe the person who considers themselves the leader. But yeah, like you said, if you ever wanted to just strike up a conversation while everyone's waiting for other guests to arrive, you can always rely on and resort to, so did you like the book? So
Yeah.
I mean, there's just some openers that you can always just dig into. It's not just like a totally at random, meetup or like networking situation. So yeah, I mean, there's also, because there's in-person meetings, like we said, and there's virtual meetings, so people can join together online, like through like a virtual live video meeting, or some actually don't have meetings at all. They just will do online chat. So they'll use our book clubs portal and they chat about it using the message board or just group DMs or DMs. And so, I wonder sometimes maybe more introverted readers kind of like meeting that way as opposed to in person or virtual. Surely a lot of it's just because like geographically people are separated. But yeah, there's different ways that people can communicate that work best for them.
And I had never thought about that before. Carrie and I have had previous discussions about the app, and I had never thought about that until she brought it up. And I use the message board feature as kind of just to send messages to the club and then they can reply back. So like, for example, we have a thread that says like, if you want to suggest a meeting location, you could reply to the thread. But Carrie shared with me that a lot of other clubs, they use it as just like a message board, like almost like a Reddit page where like you can just put one comment and then people just keep talking about the book and talking about the book, like a forum.
Yeah.
That's probably the better word for it.
Yeah, I think most online clubs that do that, they'll do it asynchronously, like you just shared. But sometimes there are some that are like, okay, we're going live at 3 p.m. and everybody logs in to do a live actual chat. So that's pretty fun to see, because we can see like when messages are firing. So we're like, oh, somebody's having an online book meeting.
That's super cool, because I know sometimes I'll read a book way after people have already read it and I kind of missed out on that discussion. But I think, having an option to go back and read what everyone else thought about it, I think that's also just as exciting to be able to do that. That's a cool feature.
Yeah, it's great. We try to help you maintain like a history basically of your club. And so it's the same with the digital shelves. You can see every book that your club has read. You can see what people rated it, how they reviewed it, and like see past meetings. So it's just really nice to kind of have a historical sort of log of your group. There's clubs that have been together who use our platform. They've been together for like 20 years. So I mean, we haven't been an app for 20 years, right? But so they joined us and like uploaded spreadsheets, right, of their reading history so that it was there. And it's just like really cool to like look back and kind of see, I don't know, a story kind of unfold, right, of a group of people.
What would you suggest for somebody like me who overcommits and signs up for way too many book clubs?
I would say join the club because I do the same. Can I just share, this is, and Ilya, I'd like to hear what you think, but this is my number one pet peeve is people think or assume, and it's so common, I see it all the time. Oh, I can't go to this meeting, whether it's in person or it's an online discussion or virtual meeting. I can't go because I didn't finish the book. And for me, as a book club member of other people's clubs and as a book club leader, and I know everyone's different, but for me, that is the number one thing I tell people. You absolutely are welcome to come if you have not read the book. If you did not like the book, if you're partway through the book, haven't finished it, you can still come. Because really, I think not difficult to engage in a conversation, even with somebody who hasn't finished the book, read it. Actually, if they didn't like it, that's even more interesting, right? Mm-hmm. So I've noticed a lot of people will self-select out of missing and joining in because maybe they bit off more than they could chew. They couldn't finish the book in time. Life is busy, right? Maybe they're reading too many books at the same time. So I don't know. That's my number one bit of advice is I would say still come to the meeting.
I agree. I think it's a sign that you have really started building a community when people show up and they're like, hey, I haven't read the book. I just came to hang out.
Yeah.
Just show up anyways. Like, it's still going to be a good time. If you didn't like the book, please show up because I want to talk to you about like why you didn't like the book. Maybe I didn't like the book and we can sit there and talk about why we hated it.
Oh yeah, it's fun to have dissenters.
Fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost a better conversation, I feel like.
Yeah. I mean, when everybody loves the book and they all love it for the same reasons, it's kind of like, okay, well, we wrapped up that conversation pretty quickly. Like, let's, talk about whatever else. So yeah, having the difference of opinions or experiences is really helpful in an interesting book club combo.
Yeah, and it still makes for a good time. I mean, we read a book this month. I won't say what it was. Didn't like it. It was just not for me. But the themes throughout the book were so much fun that I'm just going to host at my house this month so that like we can do a potluck and bring the food that was in the book, and it's like vampire-y. So have fun with that. There's so many other components to being in a book club versus just reading the book, so it's still possible to have fun.
Yeah. And I don't know, like, tell me if you get this, but like there's months where we'll meet and you look at the time and we're like, oh, this is supposed to be over in like 20 minutes. And we're like, we should probably start talking about the book now, right? Because you just get on so many other conversations or topics or themes, and that's okay too. It's okay if you have a book club meeting and you talked about the book either not at all or just for a little bit, right? Because you're really, there's so many other elements that you're engaging with, like the sense of community, the friendships, or anything like that.
Yeah, it becomes about the people. But I will say that BookClubs.com does make it really easy because a lot of the times the majority of the books that we have picked have discussion questions already there for us as, book club leads. So I don't even have to go searching. Like they're just all right there and I can kind of prepare myself with that. I really love that. Like when I see that a book has like discussion questions, it's probably the one that I'm going to vote for on the poll.
I love hearing that because we don't have a discussion guide for every single book. And I always tell people, you can request it. I don't know if you knew that, but if you are meeting about a book or you're, whatever, just interested in a book and there isn't a discussion guide, you can always just email help@bookclubs.com and we will try to get get one for you. Like, because we reach out to the publisher. Yeah. We, because we work with publishers.
I'm telling you.
Yeah, and authors. And so we will get them actually from the publisher, sometimes from the authors themselves, or we also crowdsource from our team. We're like, okay, has anybody read this book? Which is easy for like classics or like really popular books, and like a more obscure book. It's rare that our team will have read it, but that's when we'll reach out to the publishers and try to get it for you. So yeah, don't hesitate to request. And like also our team is full of just very avid readers. And so anytime we finish a book, we try to write a discussion guide for it so that we're constantly adding more.
I didn't know that. I didn't know. I'd seen the request feature, but I didn't know that Book Clubs goes as far as to try to get it for you.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. Because I just go to ChatGPT and half the time it gives me a different book. And I'm like,
yeah, I know.
So we've spoken a lot about like just showing up to meetings, even if you didn't read it, and just, forming that community. But if somebody is like, I've always wanted to host a book club, how would you suggest they get started?
Well, number one, I'm a very data-driven like tech person. So for me, I needed, and like I said, I got lucky enough that I joined a book club. So I got to find the app before I started my club, unlike the club that's been around for 20 years that had spreadsheets. Although that would have been me.
I know, that sounds like you.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to have a way to manage the group, because at the end of the day, you're going to have to manage your members. Nowadays, everything is online. So just because you're meeting in person, like, how are you going to get members? Well, they're probably going to find you online. So having a one-stop shop with the Book Clubs app to me, is a great start, because you already have a way for people to find you. When I moved to my new city, there was one other book club on the Book Clubs app, and they were only virtual. And now I think there's like over 6 or 7. So it's growing. Like, this book club's community is just like growing. So have a tool, definitely, and just be consistent. That part is the most important, because if you're consistent, people are going to be consistent with showing up and knowing what to expect. So I think those are 2 big things for me: is have a tool where you could go to, one-stop shop, Book Clubs apps, bookclubs.com, the Book Clubs app, and also, just as important, is be consistent.
Yeah, I think the consistency is really underrated. So we have noticed that clubs, because we can see how long like clubs last, how many meetings they have, like per average, right? Because it's helpful for us to know, right? Like how many, like our users, meeting for a book club once a year, once a quarter, like what's, so like just looking at our trends and clubs and it doesn't work for everybody, right? Like some people have really busy schedules and you need to use like the polling tool to find out when everybody is available. It's like, built into our app. And because you can't commit to like a day and time like every month. But the clubs that can, they say, hey, we're meeting on the last Sunday of every month, 7 p.m. Be there, be square, tend to have a much higher longevity than clubs that kind of do things and schedule ad hoc. Or what they do is, maybe it's not like every last Sunday, but they'll sit down in January and say, okay, these are all the meetings for the whole year. Have the dates, the times, they schedule the meetings in advance. And so they're there so people can actually plan their lives around the book club meeting. Maybe one book, maybe some book won't be that appealing to them. So they'll be like, oh, I don't necessarily have to go to this one, but they know, oh, I really want to read that other book. So I would say that consistency we've also noticed really lends itself to having very engaged clubs and also a lot of longevity. But, we have thousands of clubs that don't do it like that and they're doing just fine, right? We try to at least point about the one-stop shop. We're trying to facilitate all the different ways that people can and want to meet together. And so our job as our product is to take as much administrative load off of the book club and the book club leader as possible. So automated, meeting reminders. You can schedule meetings in advance. You can have text message alerts. If you're an online club, you can meet virtually within the app, right? So you don't have to have like all these separate accounts. So anyway, yeah, we're just trying to streamline all that so that you can just spend more time reading and chatting.
That's amazing. One of my favorite features is voting in the polls and seeing what all the other members are interested in and seeing the other book options. That's my favorite notification to get. Like, there's a new poll available.
Me too. And like back in the day, one of the things I emailed about, right, when I was a user, I was like, oh, I would love to have ranked choice voting. And I know, dude, like, because that's
all we
so
use.
interesting. Yes, I'm like, I would never do a poll that's not ranked choice.
I love it. And for anybody that's like listening and hasn't used the BookClubs app yet, you basically are ranking the poll choices. So if you have 3 books, you're going to rank them from 1, the one you want to read the most, to 3, the one you want to read the least. And we have literally had conversations in our group chats where we're like, I'm just gonna change my ranking, because like you check it every single day and it changes.
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
It is. It's exciting. Like, it's a very fun thing to nerd out about. I'm like, oh, what? This one's in the lead now. And also, I'm always like poised at the library to check out the one that's going to win, like, in advance, because I'm trying to predict it. But yeah, I mean, because if you use regular polls, I mean, that's great, but like, you get ties. And this way with ranked choice, you don't. And it's a more nuanced way. And you really are finding out like what your members want to read, which is really helpful, especially for like really large public clubs, right? Because you're trying to, give the people what they want. And so you get a much clearer picture, I think, of what people want that way.
For us, like as club leaders, it's the tool and the consistency, but what would make someone that's just a member consistently attend? Like, do you think that it's helpful, maybe like how Carrie said, to have like one day of the month where like you already know that it's happening? Or I don't know if I know the book clubs that you're in, so like I kind of feel that they all do it the same way, is that they have a consistent day of the month, right?
Yeah, definitely a consistent day. But I mean, for me, if it's a different week of the month, that's okay as long as I have notice. Something that you said before, Carrie, was that some clubs kind of like have all of their books chosen for the year. I mean, that's cool, but that I think part of the fun is voting and every month kind of changing, because we also don't know, some books might come out that people are like, oh, I've heard about this, I want to read it. And so it's added to the poll. I think it's really important as a host to be welcoming to everybody. I think it's important for the host kind of at every meeting to have sort of, this is like the therapist in me coming out, I feel like a group meeting, whether it's therapy or a book club, needs a frame. And the frame starts with like a welcoming or some sort of introduction, and like not super formal, but I feel like you need in your mind some sort of like boundary, like welcoming, introductions for new people, and I know some people are introverts, they don't like introductions, but even just like a quick like, hi, this is my name. Then, you have the discussion, and maybe not necessarily a closing, but I think having like an ending is also really helpful. I think that really would help make a book club successful. Viewing it as like an experience with a beginning and an end.
Have you read the book, The Art of Gathering by Priya Parker?
I have not.
Have you, Illy?
No, but I'm going to put it on my list right now.
Okay, do, because it's really interesting that you just mentioned that, because so this book is all about that, and not necessarily book clubs in particular, but the art of gathering. So whatever type of gathering. And it is a really interesting, philosophical, and poetic book about bringing people together and how to do it better. Right? Like, what makes a successful group, party, gathering, whatever. The author speaks specifically to what you just mentioned. Being really mindful and deliberate, it will really lead itself to a successful book club. Getting people to come or, sign up for your club and picking a book is one thing, but the actual meaningful component about like the discussion is the most important part. And like you said, I mean, having a type of structure and considering everybody within that. So really considering who is this group for and why are we here is like, I think, a really key thing to keep in mind as you're leading a club, or just maybe you don't even lead the whole club, but maybe you're in charge of leading a specific meeting.
Yeah, because it's a ritual, and humans crave rituals, they crave routine. And I think when somebody goes to a book club meeting, they want to feel like they're a part of a group. They don't want to feel like they're just an individual in the group, but like you are an individual, but then you're also as a whole the book club. And I think a host that is able to embody that, it will be felt by the members.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. So I definitely recommend that book to anybody who brings people together.
I'm going to jot that down.
Illy, I feel like you naturally do a lot of that.
I think it's just my need to constantly put stuff in bullet points that creates that. Recently, what we did, one of the members in my group up here in Orlando, she came up with it for one of our recent meetings, is we printed out all of the questions and we had them really cute. We and we put them in a box, like a really pretty box. So we passed this box around and everybody just read the question, and instead of us doing a introduction component where like we went around and each had to give an introduction and something about ourselves or whatever, we let it kind of flow in the sense of like, just take the question, say your name. If you want to say something about yourself and you feel comfortable, go ahead. If not, just read the question, and if you don't know the answer, just open it to the group. And it actually worked out really, really, really well. So we're going to do it for the second time this month. So that's an option if anybody, is out there and trying to figure out how to make their introverted members feel more comfortable.
That's a great idea.
I love that. I'm going to use that. We have a blog series called How to Book Club where we share these types of like suggestions, ideas. I mean, it's so simple, but that is like a light bulb just went off. Like that's brilliant, because usually, or a lot of times, it's one person trying to be like, okay, here's a list of questions, let's go through them, kind of thing. But that is a great idea. I'm going to try it with my book club too.
Yeah, it worked out really well because it felt like everybody got a moment, especially when you're starting to have bigger group, the group is growing and it's harder to like have conversations with like everyone. It gives everyone a moment. And even if they get a question that they can't answer, it's still a way for somebody else to answer the question. And then they can have like a talking back and forth, about that too. So it was good. And then the other thing that I think is great, maybe just because I have a terrible memory, Morgan knows this about me, I cannot have book club without a characters list.
Oh,
it's so helpful.
You're right, because people are always like, oh, the person who, yeah. How funny. That's a great idea.
That is a great idea.
Yeah.
So from both of you, is there any book club meeting that you've ever been to that stands out in your mind as like, man, that was the best book club I've ever been to? And I'm curious as to why. You could also tell me on the other end a terrible book club meeting that you went to and why, because I think both are valid, right? I'm very interested in hearing like, what are people's best experiences or worst experiences and why?
So something that Illy has done that I think has made book clubs really fun is like now I'm losing my words, the book exchange, but what do we?
Oh yeah, book
yeah.
swap.
It was like we did a white elephant book exchange. So I was actually going to say that has been my favorite meeting to date so far. We met on Fourth Wing. Fantasy is really hard because not all people are fantasy readers, and to get someone to buy the first book of a series and feel like, okay, now I have this book and I'm never going to read the other ones. But what I did in that particular meeting was really get into the theme. So we had themed food. We had, if you've ever read Fourth Wing, they have to cross like a very narrow, it's called a parapet, very narrow, high up ledge in order to get into the college. So I went to Home Depot, had my husband paint like a huge wooden thing, and everyone had to walk across the parapet to get into the discussions.
I love a theme, going all in.
I do too. So I'm, again, really excited that I'm going to get to host it at my house this month and get nerdy with the theme. But that was one of my favorites because I really felt like even members that didn't read the book because it just wasn't for them or didn't finish the book in time, like I felt like they still had fun. And what Morgan was talking about was we also did a book exchange where everybody brought a 5-star read to them, like a book that they would recommend to a friend, and they wrapped it. We did the white elephant gift exchange. And then at the end, we all went around and shared the book that we brought and why we liked it. And I felt like that really brought a lot of like connections together, because at the next meeting, you could hear people be like, did you like the book? Did you get to it yet? So that was also one of my favorites. And I don't want to say that it was a bad experience or that it was like not a book club experience. It was just like, we usually meet at restaurants, and I call the restaurants ahead. I check to see if they have live music to make sure that we could still have our discussion and stuff. We showed up. This was just a couple months ago, and they had told me, no, we don't have any live music. It's pretty quiet on that particular day of the week. I'm like, okay, great. We start the discussion, and then like 20 minutes in, all of the sudden it goes from like low music to, I'm talking like 2000s, like boombox, like, you know, you heard the car like 4 neighborhoods over. That was the restaurant. And then a salsa dancer came out and started dancing. And so I looked at the server and I was like, hey, like, is this like the rest of the night? Like, what's happening? And he's like, no. She's just going to dance for 3 songs and then she takes a break. And then I'm like, okay, how long is the break? And he's like, oh, she'll be on like every 20, 25 minutes. I'm like, this is going to be fun for book club.
Yeah.
Like, that is going to be great.
Oh man, that is another good pro tip. I didn't even think about that because like we'll write stuff, you know, we'll say like, oh, here's an idea, like have it at a brewery or a restaurant if you're looking for a change. But I never thought to check about the music situation. Good idea.
Looking back on it, it's funny. At that moment, it was not.
Yeah.
Fair.
And not for me at all. But now it's funny. Now we look back on it and it was.
I love that. I mean, yeah, you're right. It's funny now with the distance, but I can't imagine people being like, oh God, this is excruciating.
Like, oh,
yeah, how funny.
Yeah, every 25 minutes we meet for 2 hours. Like, it's like going to be really hard to have a discussion during this. But we laughed it off and it was still like funny, but it was still a good night.
Yeah.
But it was definitely a lesson learned, like to maybe check out the place beforehand.
That's a really good call. Yeah. And I agree. Like for my personal book club, we have around the holidays, we always have a book exchange and everybody loves it. Even, you know, there's always those members who are like, maybe they come to only a couple in a year, but they always come to the holiday one because it is really fun to just get a mystery book, you know? So yeah, I always recommend that too. My club did this really fun thing, and I always tell people because I know it's not for everybody. So, but this is the nerd podcast, so I think that I might reach some other nerds out there. So we like on a whim, we're like, oh, let's just do something different, right? And there's lots of ways you can be different, like different kind of books, themes, etc., different location. So instead of reading a book and discussing a book, we did a live table read. So we got the script of an old classic movie and I cut up like the character list, just like you said, right? Cut it up, put it into a like hat, and we all drew out of the hat to pick out our characters. And I had the scripts all printed out. Like I went to Kinko's, okay, like the day before, and I had them all, and I had the table laid out. We had pencils, you know, water, you know, everything that one would need to do a whole movie table read. And it was so much fun to see people just really like get into their characters, or like they'll deliver a line and they're like, hold on, I can do that better. And like people clapping, and just like, it was seriously the nerdiest fun I've ever had. The movie screenplay that we did was all about Eve. For any theater kids, theater nerds, classic Hollywood nerds out there, I recommend it was a great.
I love that. That sounds so fun.
And actually, like a BookClubs user, because I actually did do a blog post about that because I was like, wow, this was so cool. I got to share it. And somebody actually wrote in, was like, hey, how did you like get the script? Or like, I'd like to do that with my club. And like, I sent her the world's longest email with like step by step, this is how you do it, links on like where to get the screenplay. And she wrote back, wow, I didn't think I was even going to get any answer, let alone like you just gave me the step-by-step instructions for this. So thank you. And you can do that virtually too. I actually found it because it was like a pandemic activity, and like people like did it with friends, like just like on a Zoom or whatever. So anyway, pro tip.
It's cool.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah.
If you're interested, Illy, I'll send you how to do it.
Yeah. I was in drama club when I was like in high school. So like for literally a semester, but yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So like a TV episode would be really good too, because it's short. Old Hollywood movies are shorter. So, I mean, but it was still like a long meeting. Like it was like a Saturday afternoon. We were like doing it for like 3 hours. But like a modern day movie would be like too long, you know, to do that. But anyway, yeah, I'll send you some info.
Cool.
I love that.
What has been the most surprising part about starting a book club for each of you?
Well, last time I answered this question, I said people showing up. The most surprising thing has actually been that I hate social media. I am not like a social media person. And I started a social media for Spine Benders Society Orlando. I was like, this is where the world is. I need to like get with it. And the amount of authors that have reached back out when like we post a meeting about a reel about their book or answer questions. I mean, Lisa Jewell talked to me like in DM. You know, you post something and the author would just post it on their stories. Like, that has been super surprising that these are like celebrities to us when you're a reader. That's been really surprising to me. I really never thought that like authors were people that just would reach out to you and talk to you. I think it's great.
That is a great answer. You're right. I've noticed the same thing. Like, to see authors engaging with our users is so cool. And like, dude, so many authors, this is like, for anyone listening, this is also a suggestion. So many authors are willing to come and join your book club, mostly virtually, obviously, right? Because the chances are that you're living in the same city that that author is, would be rare. But they will join in a virtual book club meeting and take questions from
That's
your
so
members,
cool.
or just like, do a chat, like maybe just an interview, like chat. It is awesome. Yeah. And so if you are a book club leader, go to that author's website, go to the contact, and just see.
Yeah, it's been really cool.
Yeah.
Even our next book is We Used to Live Here, and that book is viral right now. Like, you can't find it. It was supposed to be our book for September, and because it was out of stock, you either couldn't find it or you weren't going to get it for weeks. I had to push it to October. And when I posted that that was our book, and Marcus Clewer reposted that on, I was like, oh, like, that is insane.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
It is really cool. Yeah.
I'll say the most surprising thing for me, I mean, maybe not the most surprising, but one of the surprising things is how long my list of books that I want to read has grown. That's really the only negative, and it's not even really a negative, I would say, about book clubs, is just finding so many more books that I want to read and realizing I'm never going to have all the time to read every single book I want to read.
I know. The TBR list, it is long.
Yeah.
Yes, I know. But with book clubs, we try to make you at least able to track it, right? Like, you can add it to your want to read shelf. You can also set personal reading goals to try to like get through your TBR list and everything. And we'll send like reminders like when you're like halfway through your goal, or like you've reached your goal. So yeah, I know though. I mean, I've got hundreds of books on mine.
It's a really cool app because there's so many features. You can tell that it was built by people that are avid readers, because you don't even have to really join an in-person book club to get features out of it. Like, you're able to add to your own like TBR list and what I want to read, what I have read. So
cool.
Yeah.
You can have you could have a personal profile in addition to your whatever club that you're in also. Yeah. And they're separate. So you can do a personal reading list versus your clubs. Yeah.
So if people are maybe like curious about book clubs but aren't sure yet, download the app, check it out, use it for personal
use. You don't have to be in a club to use the app. It's free. You just need an email address. That's all.
Awesome.
Yeah. Oh, let me share really quickly.
Yeah.
Because Illy, you said like this was created by book lovers. Do you guys know the origination story?
No.
Of book clubs?
Let's hear it.
No. It's so cute. So two of our co-founders they met at a book club. They were living in Philly, and one is a like developer. And they met at this book club, and he really liked her, and she was leading the book club, and she's like, oh man, it's just like a lot of work. There's a lot of emails here, like a lot of email threads, like texting people, are you going to come, this, that, whatever, what do you want to read? And so to woo her, he created this app just for her book club. Yeah, because he was falling in love with her. I know. And then presented it to her as like, here, I made you an app for this book club. So they were just using it just for their club, just for their book club in Philly. And then obviously she fell in love with him, because why wouldn't you when someone builds you an app for your book club? And the rest is history. Look, I know.
It's somebody's love story. I love that. I didn't know. I need to tell my husband to do better. This is ridiculous.
I was like, this is like the ultimate mixtape. You just created like It really, I know, awesome, very romantic. So yeah, they just used the Book Clubs app was just for their book club for like 3 or 4 years. And then they were like, they got married and they were like, hey, what if we like tried to make this into an app for everybody, like for the world, you know? And so that's how we started.
I love that. You guys need to put that everywhere. That is such an awesome story.
So yeah, do you know what's funny? Okay, so we actually like we've like made a blog post about it and we like shared it. And I think I think our team like tends to share it around like Valentine's Day, like, oh, here's a meet cute for you. But you're right, we should just like talk about it a lot because it is really adorable.
Yeah, that is really adorable.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Any authors listening, there you have some inspiration for a romance book to write.
Oh my God, you're right. Somebody should write that. Yeah.
Well, thank you both so much for being here. This was so much fun. You know, we could always have a part 2 if, you know, there's more things to talk about because this is a lot of fun.
I have never ending book club stories. So anytime. Yeah, thank you so much for inviting us. I love hearing from, like I said, our users and our fans. And so like you've already just in this conversation given me so many great ideas to share with the greater book clubs community, because if you're doing something, if you're liking something or finding something challenging, the odds are that others are. And so I really love being part of this convo so I can help share all these ideas.
Awesome. So where can everybody find, well, both of you?
BookClubs is a free web and mobile platform. It's available on iOS and Google Play. And you can also, if you don't want to download an app, you can just create a free account at bookclubs.com. All you need is an email address. You can start your own book club, or you can find one of our thousands of public book clubs to join. You can also follow Book Clubs on Instagram at BookClubsHQ.
Awesome. Highly, highly, highly recommended. I think I've made that my geeky recommendation for the show several times now throughout the year. So
we love hearing it. Thank you.
And the app is awesome. Like whenever I talk to my members and they don't have the app downloaded, I'm like, please just download the app.
Download that app.
It's great. You could reach me at Spine Benders Society _Orlando. That's our Instagram handle. Yeah.
Look for your highlight in the recent club inspiration email from Book Clubs.
Yes, I need to go there.
Awesome. All right, everybody, thank you so much for listening or watching. Please be sure that you are following That Nerd Thing wherever you listen to podcasts. And please, if you're able to, leave a 5-star review. Those numbers really do help with the algorithm. You can email me at thatnerdthingpod@gmail.com, or you can follow the show on social media at thatnerdthingpod. And yeah, this was so much fun. I hope you all join a book club. Check out bookclubs.com. Highly, highly, highly recommend it. And we'll see you next time.